The first time it happened, I was 7 years old. I was in my grandmother's kitchen, a place of warm, sugary smells and faded floral wallpaper. She was pouring me a glass of milk, the white liquid splashing against the side of the tall glass. A fly buzzed a frantic, dizzying pattern against the window pane. As she handed me the glass, a sickening lurch twisted my stomach. A wave of heat washed over me, followed by an icy chill. I knew this. Not in a vague, comforting way, but with a terrifying, frame-by-frame precision. I knew the fly would stop buzzing for exactly 3 seconds before starting again. I knew a drop of milk would slide down the outside of the glass, and I knew my grandmother would say, "Don't gulp it, Arthur, you'll get a brain freeze," just as the drop reached the table. It all unfolded exactly as the memory that wasn't a memory dictated. When it was over, I felt hollowed out and strangely heavy. My grandmother patted my head, her knuckles rough and gentle. "You look like you've seen a ghost, dear boy," she said. I hadn't. I'd seen something far worse. I'd seen the present, already past. I called them echoes. That's what they felt like, a sonic boom from a future event, reverberating back into the present moment. They weren't premonitions. I couldn't see lottery numbers or prevent accidents. They were useless, terrifyingly intimate recordings of mundane moments. An echo was always triggered by a sensory cue, the smell of rain on hot asphalt, the specific angle of light through a dusty window, a fragment of a forgotten song on a crackly radio. Then the lurch, the heat and the cold. And for 10, 20, sometimes 30 seconds I was a passenger in my own body, watching a film I had already seen, waiting for the reel to catch up. For years I told no one. What would I say? "Mother, sometimes I experience a profound and unsettling familiarity with completely ordinary events." They'd have patted my head, just like Grandma, and sent me to a child psychologist. So I built walls. I became an observer of my own life, constantly braced for the next lurch, the next echo. I learned to hide the disorientation, to smile through the existential dread. It made me quiet, withdrawn. I preferred the company of books to people. Books were predictable. Their pages didn't hold hidden, recursive traps. I found a semblance of peace in routine. I became an archivist, a restorer of old books and documents. The work was solitary, precise. The smell of old paper and leather polish was a constant, one that never triggered an echo. It was my sanctuary. I lived in a small, tidy apartment on the outskirts of the city, my life as ordered and predictable as the Dewey Decimal System. For the most part, it worked. The echoes came, but they were manageable, like epileptic fits I'd learned to conceal. Then I met Clara. It was at a library fundraiser. She was a historian, vibrant and full of a life that seemed to spill out of her. Her laughter was too loud, her gestures too broad for my quiet world. I was drawn to her like a moth to a bonfire. Against every instinct of self-preservation, I let her in. The first time she stayed over, I woke to the smell of her perfume on my pillow and the sound of her humming in the kitchen. For a glorious, terrifying moment, I felt normal, hopeful. The echo about Clara came 6 months later. We were walking through the park, the autumn leaves crunching under our feet. She was telling a story, her hands flying, her scarf a flash of red against the gray sky. The wind changed direction, carrying the scent of wood smoke from a distant bonfire. And then the lurch. I knew she would stumble on an unseen route. I knew I would reach out to steady her, my hand on her elbow. I knew she would laugh, a little breathlessly, and say, "My knight in shining armor," and then she would kiss me. The echo unfolded with its usual merciless precision. Her stumble, my hand, her laugh, her kiss. But this time, something was different. As the echo faded and the real-world moment caught up, I felt a residue. A cold spot in my mind. And in that cold spot, a flicker of an image that hadn't been in the echo, Clara's face, pale and terrified, her eyes wide, her mouth open in a silent scream. It was gone in a nanosecond, but it left me shaking. "Arthur? You're white as a sheet," Clara said, her brow furrowed with concern. "Just a chill," I managed to stammer, forcing a smile. But it was a lie. This was new. The echoes had always been neutral, stereo recordings. They had never shown me anything bad. The changes accelerated after that. The echoes became more frequent, more intense. They started to linger, the disorientation lasting for minutes afterward. And the corrupted echoes, the ones with the terrible afterimages, began to happen more often. I saw Clara crying in a rain-soaked street. I saw a broken coffee mug on my kitchen floor. I saw my own hands, covered in what looked like dirt, trembling violently. I started to withdraw from Clara, too afraid to touch her, to create new moments that might echo back with some hidden horror. My work suffered. I'd be restoring a 17th century manuscript and my hand would freeze, seized by an echo of a moment that hadn't happened yet, a moment where I was staring at the same manuscript, but with a feeling of utter despair. The final straw was the corridor. It began as a faint echo, triggered by the flicker of a faulty fluorescent light in my apartment building's lobby. Just a glimpse, walking down the long, carpeted corridor towards my door. The echo was weak, barely a whisper. But the afterimage was not. It was the smell of copper and damp earth, and a sound, a low, wet, rasping breath that was not my own. That echo started to recur, growing stronger each time. Any flickering light could trigger it. I saw more details, the number on my door, for B, the ugly sconce on the wall. And the afterimage intensified. The copper smell became the unmistakable metallic tang of blood. The rasping breath grew louder, closer. I started to dread going home. I took the stairs to avoid the lobby light. I'd sprint down the corridor, my heart hammering, never looking back. I was falling apart. Clara knew it. "Arthur, you have to talk to me," she pleaded one evening, her voice cracking. "You're having panic attacks. You're not sleeping. Let me help you." How could I explain? The rational world she inhabited had no room for my curse. "It's just stress," I mumbled, avoiding her eyes. "Work is complicated." The corrupted echo of the corridor became constant, a tinnitus of the soul. It was no longer triggered by external cues. It was just there, lurking at the edge of my consciousness. I felt like I was walking towards that door all the time, every second of the day, the rasping breath just behind me. One Tuesday, I hit breaking point. I'd been trying to focus on a delicate repair, but the echo was too loud. I saw my hands, my real, present hands, superimposed with the echo hands covered in grime. I heard the breath, right in my ear. I fled the archive, earning strange looks from my colleagues. I wandered the city for hours, a ghost among the living, trying to outrun the future. But you can't outrun what's already inside you. Exhausted, defeated, I finally turned towards home. The night was cold and still. As I approached my apartment building, a profound and absolute certainty settled over me. This was it. The moment the echoes had been foreshadowing. The corridor. The door. The thing waiting for me. I wasn't experiencing a premonition. I was walking a path that had already been laid down. I was a character fulfilling his role in a story that had already been written. The lobby was empty. The fluorescent light buzzed and flickered. Lurch. The echo hit me with the force of a physical blow, so powerful it nearly brought me to my knees. It wasn't a memory of the future anymore. It was the present. I was living inside the echo. I walked slowly down the corridor. The pattern on the carpet, the number 4 beyond my door, it was all exactly as I had seen it 100 times. The smell hit me first, blood and damp earth, so thick I could taste it. The rasping breath was deafening now, coming from behind my own door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the lock. I turned it. The click was obscenely loud in the silent hallway. I pushed the door open. The apartment was dark, but the streetlight from the window cast long, skeletal shadows. And there, in the middle of the living room, was Clara. She was on her knees, her face a mask of terror, just as I had seen in that first corrupted afterimage. She was staring at something that stood between her and the window, something I couldn't quite make out in the gloom. It was a shape, tall and unnaturally thin, a void deeper than the surrounding darkness. "Arthur!" she screamed, her voice raw with panic. "Run!" The thing turned. It had no face, only a terrible, absorbing darkness. But I felt its attention focus on me. The rasping breath was coming from it. I knew, with a certainty that went beyond the echoes, that this was the source. This was the thing that had been haunting the edges of my perception my entire life. It wasn't a ghost. It was something else, something that existed outside of time, and it had been feeding on my terror, on the recursive loop of my life. The echo wasn't a memory of the future. It was a trap, a snare set by this creature. It had shown me this moment over and over to ensure I would walk right into it, a puppet on a string of predetermined time. The creature took a step towards me. The air grew cold. I was paralyzed, caught between the echo and the horrifying reality. But then, something broke. A lifetime of being a passenger, of watching my life unfold like a pre-recorded tape, ignited a spark of defiance. This was my life. My present. Not its future. I didn't run. I took a step forward. Then another. I looked past the creature, at Clara. "Get out," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Now." The creature hesitated. The rasping breath hitched. It was not used to deviation from the script. Clara scrambled to her feet and bolted for the door. The creature's attention flickered towards her for a split second. And in that second I charged. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't have a plan. I had only a raw, screaming need to break the cycle. I slammed into the dark shape. It was like hitting a column of freezing smoke. There was no impact, only a sensation of absolute cold and a psychic scream that tore through my mind, a scream of fractured time and thwarted hunger. The world dissolved into a maelstrom of shattered images. My childhood, the library, Clara's face, the corridor, all spinning together. I saw 1,000 possible futures fracture and break. And then silence. I was on the floor of my apartment. The early dawn light was filtering through the window. The room was empty. The smell was gone. The rasping breath was gone. I was alone. The police came. Clara had called them. I told them a story about an intruder, a break-in. They found no evidence, no forced entry. They thought I was in shock, which I was. Clara stayed with me for a few days, but a chasm had opened between us. She had seen the terror in my eyes, seen me charge at empty air. She couldn't understand what had happened, and my fractured explanations only drove her further away. She left eventually. I didn't blame her. The echo stopped. Completely. The silence in my head was deafening, a void where a constant, dreaded companion had lived for 30 years. I was free. But I was also unmoored. My entire life had been defined by that curse. Without it, who was I? It's been a year now. I still work with old books. I still live in the same apartment. The corridor is just a corridor. The light in the lobby has been fixed. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I wake up with a start. Not from an echo, from the memory of one. I remember the absolute certainty of that predetermined path, the feeling of my own life being a recording. And I wonder, did I truly break free? Or did I simply choose the one path, the one variable, that the creature hadn't foreseen? Was my defiance just another part of the script? I'll never know. I live my life one moment at a time now, grateful for the uncertainty of it all. The horror of my youth wasn't the glimpses of the future. The true horror was the prison of knowing. Now, the future is a blank page, and I am finally, terrifyingly, free to write it.